I'm James Barnes. He, him. I'm a realtor in the Vancouver area. I'm 30, which is kind of odd. And yeah, I'm a transgender man, I guess, is part of it. So I have three sisters and no brothers. And that really was kind of the starting point. They were very different than me. I was, all of the cliche boy things I liked. And I didn't know that there was any other way about it. Even though I had sisters, I thought I was normal for myself. And it was when people started pointing out, you're not like your sisters, that I was like, what? I don't get it. Like, I'm me. I don't get that. And then people would start to say, are you a boy? And I was like, yeah. And people would be like, no. And it's like, okay, let's think this through. Suits have always been a fabric of my being, figuratively and literally. When I was 8 or 9, I remember it was Easter, and my mom asked all of us what we wanted to wear, and I said I want to go to the thrift store. We were pretty poor, and I said I want to go to the thrift store and buy a suit. And they just they weren't surprised by it. My parents knew that I was more masculine, and they went along with it. I have the photo still, and I had long hair, and I'm in this total mismatched suit, but I felt amazing. And that was really the moment. I think I was around 8 or 9. I remember the exact moment I realized I liked girls. I was 10, and as girls hold hands, a friend of mine was holding my hand, and I thought, oh no, people are going to think I like we're flirting. And that's when I realized that I was reading the vibe very different than how she was reading it. And yeah, those were the two big moments for me that I knew that I was attracted to women and a man or a boy at the time. So yeah, between having three sisters, it really just kind of like it's right in your face. You don't really have the ability to ignore it. So I was born and raised in a very Christian family. So when I was 7, we lived in Russia doing missionary work. My parents lived in Mexico for a while with missionary stuff. My mom, I think, smuggled Bibles into China for a stint. I mean, we're talking like missionary family. And so I went to a private school, which LGBT wasn't even represented there. But if you mentioned it, you probably would talk about like going to hell. It was very dark. So I kind of just pushed that stuff down. I struggled a lot with depression and sadness. And I was also very me. I was outspoken. I was very loud. It was really hard to miss me in a room. So you're talking about this obvious like gender identity kid, but the teachers loved me because I was really like leadership, and I could see in their eyes the conflict they had. They knew that I was on the spectrum of LGBT. They just didn't know what it was. And so they really just tried to utilize me for my talents. So I talked at a lot of sermons. I was a kind of mini pastor. And then we moved. We moved up here when I was 15, and we moved to like the most conservative town. We moved to Woodland, which I don't know if you know that much about it, but it's about 2 towns up from Vancouver. And it is just, it's so conservative. And I thrived there with the identity I had before, class president. I was on the homecoming court, all of these great things. And then I got outed, which is very odd because the principal called my mom and said, your kid was making out with this girl in the hallway, which didn't happen. So I was really mad because I didn't even kiss anybody. I hadn't even had my first kiss, and I was already getting outed for something I didn't do. I had just hugged her, and a teacher thought we were being too physical. And so it just snowballed. It just created this whole outing because I was like, well, yeah, I didn't make out with her, but I do like girls. So I might as well open up the topic. And then we basically decided that I should probably go away after high school. I graduated and went to YWAM. It's a missionary school to kind of straighten myself out. I was still really struggling with being in a conservative town in a conservative family. There wasn't really an option to be queer. And so I went to this missionary school to become straight, and I met a blonde, and we dated, and she and I had a really, really dysfunctional relationship. And that just kind of followed. I had a lot of dysfunctional relationships. I didn't fit my skin. And then I met Courtney, my wife, and she had only been with men, and she kept calling me her boyfriend. And I said, "You know, what like, is it just because 'cause you've been with guys? Because if you're uncomfortable with this," and she was like, "Well, no, I mean, I don't wanna tell you anything about yourself, but just your soul just is so masculine to me. I can't help but call you my boyfriend." And I had been on Instagram seeing a lot of guys, that had transitioned, and I sat her down and I said, "Well, I need to talk to you about something, actually, now that you say that." And I told her about what it meant to be transgender, and she basically looked at me like I had said I wanted pizza for dinner. She was like, "Oh, yeah, okay." So anyways, da da da. And I was like, "That's it?" And she was like, "Well, duh. Like, no, duh. I'm only attracted to men. I really was confused kind of about you, but it made sense because you're just this man to me." And it just, that was 24. I was 24 and my life changed. Within a month, I had a doctor, I had hormones, and yeah, the rest is history. This is me now. But yeah, it was all because of Courtney. I don't think I would have been able to own who I was because I had surrounded myself with people who were very conservative, even in the queer community, really conservative people. And yeah, I just had, I think, been scared of that part of my identity because I had three sisters. I didn't have a brother. I didn't know what it meant to be a man. My dad is amazing, but he wasn't around as much as a kid. He had to work a lot to make money. And so, yeah, masculinity was kind of something that I didn't really understand, but I knew it was me. So, being with somebody like Courtney, she's really helped me embrace that part of me. I think for me, the best part is watching myself through photos, watching myself get scruff and facial hair, watching my jaw develop. I mean, it's such shallow things, but it's really the part that I look forward to. I remember when I was a teenager going through puberty and realizing that I wasn't going to go through puberty and end on the other side of puberty looking like how I wanted to look. And it was like kind of a horror movie playing out. You know, puberty was just one month after another realizing that my body was changing in a way I didn't want it to change. And then you fast forward at 26, going through puberty again, and it sucked. You know, you have acne. I don't know if I could say this, but your sex drive is through the roof, which is miserable at, 26, trying to go full-time job. And you're just sitting there like, why am I thinking about this right now? And so that's difficult. You just feel like a teenager. And the voice cracking, trying to have people take you seriously. And you're like, no, see, what I need from you is, and you're like, oh, that's hard. Or fighting with your at the time, she's my girlfriend, and my voice cracking. I mean, you lose all credibility at that. So that was difficult. But the hardest part for me was, and a lot of people don't talk about this, there's the stereotype of men having anger issues. And so when people ask me, like, I want to transition, am I going to have anger issues? I'll say no, but you're going to actually have a harder time dealing with your emotions. So I was really emotional, like Hallmark commercials, I would just sob. And now it's like pulling teeth trying to get me to cry. But I still feel like I want to cry. But something between the hormones, it just switches it. It just changes it. And so watching myself become this amazing man, but not being able to explain it, like you trade it. And that was an interesting, I would give it for anything. I mean, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. But that was interesting, watching myself become this amazing man, but losing that ability to communicate how I felt about it. It was a very interesting process. So my long-term goal is I want to be a motivational speaker. And that kind of comes from when I was younger, having that talent of being able to talk to people and be a public speaker, and the church making me do sermons and pastoring. And I was like, I don't believe half of this stuff, but I love public speaking. So yeah, okay, I'll say it, And so now I get to talk about what I actually believe and what I love. And a huge part of that is love and understanding. And for me, having that ability, I just had the opportunity this last week to go back to my high school, the really conservative one in Woodland, and speak at the LGBT club. And when I was in high school, there wasn't an LGBTQ club. And now there was 20 kids, and they were just bright-eyed and excited to learn. And somebody had asked me about anxiety, about how do you handle the anxiety of being yourself? And I talked about how anxiety is the fear of an event to come. You're just anxious about it. And you can't change the event to come, but what you can change is your fear. And that's how I feel towards understanding and love. A lot of times people just have this fear about something that's come. Maybe somebody's going to use the wrong pronouns, or they're going to assume you're going to have a boyfriend and really you're going to have a girlfriend. And if you can have that ability to love yourself and understand yourself so much, you have so much more of an opportunity to have grace when they mess up, and kind of put your arm around them and welcome them to your world because you're so confident in that, And so that's been really, really exciting is finding that understanding in myself, that ability to look in the mirror and yeah, everything matches. Mostly everything matches how I want it to match. And that to me is so important, not just with your body, but your mind and your soul and your heart. And I think that is so important for somebody who's wanting to transition or somebody who's becoming a parent or lost a parent or whatever they're going into life is finding that ability, that anchor in yourself and being able to love yourself and understand yourself and have compassion for yourself. And then you're able to help others and love others and help them, whether it's through transition or becoming a parent. I have a little girl and that's an amazing thing. And as a trans guy, that was something I never thought I'd get to be as a dad. And so I've had to learn a lot about understanding and being patient with myself and growing in that. So yeah, yeah, that's been huge. I think love and understanding is critical in a transition. I think for me, having a wife who is cisgendered, that's been critical for our relationship. So I will go through things like needing a top surgery. And to her, that's money out of our budget that could be spent on other stuff. And James, I just don't get it. I mean, that's a real conversation. That's a real thing. And having to step back and realize that she's not saying that I'm less than, that I'm not important, but having to explain the value of it. And when I was able to do that between a lot of marriage therapy and having my own therapy and being able to explain that a lot of times people aren't ignoring your struggle because they don't care. A lot of times it's just what you said. They just can't feel it. They just don't realize that it's even there. They don't understand that. And I think that when you have that ability to take a step back and think, maybe I could explain this in a little different way, or maybe I could see it through their way, all of a sudden you open the pathway of now you're wanting to help them understand, but you're also wanting to understand it from their view. I've never understood what it's like to live in a world where I feel comfortable in my body. And that's an amazing thing. So then when I sat there and thought about it through my wife's view, I was able to kind of open up that pathway. And she was much more open to hear what I had to say because I was trying to think of it from her view versus just pounding, well, this is what I want and this is why I want it. It was much more of a compassionate conversation. And I think when you have something like the body, it's such an intimate conversation. It's not just intimate for people who are transgender. It's intimate for a woman who just gave birth and her body doesn't look the way it did 9 months ago. And she thought her body would kind of always look a little bit like that. And then she had this baby and now nothing looks the same. My wife went through that with Addison. And after that, she had a lot more compassion for for my transition because she realized what it's like to think your body looks like something and then you look down and it doesn't look like that anymore. And I think having that type of dialogue, whether it's really vulnerable for men who used to be athletes and really really fit, and then they became dads and they have the dad bod, and talking about that, or you're losing hair. One of the big side effects of testosterone is your hair thins. I had amazing, beautiful, thick hair before I was on hormones, and now I've lost that. And so that's a bonding thing I bring up with guys all the time. I'll have a guy a buddy of mine who his hair's thinning or he's bald, and I'll bring that up, and all of a sudden it's this thing that they never thought that they would have in common with me, but it bonded us together and something that they can relate to. And so I think that when you're dealing with such an intimate thing like the body, having that ability to reel in the person, think like, okay, they're a parent. Okay, their body doesn't look like how they thought it would be, or they were an athlete. Just trying to connect the dots is what I think we as humans need to do more of putting ourselves in other people's shoes. And if you're in their shoes, that gives them the opportunity to step into your shoes. And it's this amazing journey that you get to take together versus just trying to shove them into your shoes, which doesn't work very well, as we've seen. So I think it's important to take a second to see it from their eyes. So I was in a world growing up where I didn't even know that there was a word to describe what I was. I remember reading something recently that said, why do we call masculine girls tomboys, but we don't have really a word for that for boys except for sissies or girly girls, and it's a negative connotation. And I remember thinking that's so true because there was always, oh, you're a tomboy. And I always think, I'm not. There's something else. There's something in there. I can feel it. There's something that's different about me. And it's not a bad different. It's just I'm different than my sisters, but I don't know what it was. But it was about, like I said, about 5 years ago, Instagram came out and I was able to see these guys and just guys after guys after guys, these just that were me. And I didn't feel crazy anymore. I didn't feel insecure. I just felt understood. And what I would have given to have somebody on Friends or Seinfeld or one of those huge shows that it wasn't like that was the focal point of the show. It's just that's what they were. They were just transgender. And having that person who has that identity that brings a word to what I feel, because as a kid I didn't have the internet, I didn't have that ability to Google, "I feel like a man. What is this?" I didn't have that gift, and I think it is an amazing thing. It's saving so many lives now that youth is able to look at people and see that. And I think if I could talk to somebody who, all of their identities were visible on TV, showing them a show that doesn't look like them at all, or even a photo, or walking them into a room where everybody looks the opposite of them, they'll feel it real quick how they don't fit in. Even if everybody's welcoming, even if everybody's kind, you still realize you're the one, whatever it is. And I think that that's been an amazing gift for me is seeing rooms full of people that look and think and feel just like me, having forums where there's people that are able to ask about top surgeries, and I'm able to help them. But years ago, you just had to, it was like shooting a fish in a barrel trying to find a doctor who would support you, and now there's this amazing visibility of doctors who are safe. That's huge. I mean, I can't imagine what that was like for the people who went before us that paved that way without the visibility, that they didn't know what the word is and they still went to the doctor and asked for help. They saved my life. They took such hard hits to try and create visibility for people like me and the youth, and so yeah, I think that visibility is not just important. I think it's a lifesaver having that ability to see somebody who has scars on their chest too, or balding, and going through it with me, and I'm like, oh, we're in this together. Like, okay, and I think it's so important. But I would kill for uh, one of the shows on CW has a new superhero who the actress is transgender, and the headline said first transgender superhero, and it's cool. But I can't wait for that just to be a normal thing, that she's just a superhero. It has nothing to do with the fact that she transitioned, but we're getting there. But yeah, yeah, that's what I'm excited about is how it's coming to become a little bit more normal. It is interesting looking at what transgender was 20 years ago, and I definitely am not the most educated transgender individual on it, but watching how a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, there were no surgeries. A lot of times you didn't have hormones. The doctors wouldn't give it to you. And so it really was just changing how you looked, maybe changing your hairstyle, trying to fit in. Just trying your best to feel as comfortable in your body as you could. And a lot of times it was exceptionally dangerous because you didn't have the ability to have the surgeries or the hormones. So, you would be outed often. Um, and that to me is terrifying. You didn't have the opportunity to change your birth certificate or your gender identity or driver's license or anything like that, or your name, or, just that alone, the power in a name, the gift that a name is. To think that I would have to still have my dead name on everything right now, and how that would out me all the time. It would, the empathy and compassion I have for the people that went before me is immense, because they carried the weight of so much pressure and pain, and all because they just wanted to fit what they believed that they were, that they knew they were on the inside. My family handled my transition pretty poorly at first, and they've come around. They're amazing. but I was getting outed often because of my license. Thankfully, I'm very lucky that testosterone really soaked up into my body, and I'm really happy about this. And the voice isn't too bad either. And so I quickly was needing to change my license, my ID, and my name. And my mom wanted to kind of make amends. And she said, I gave you your first name. I gave you the wrong first name. I'd like to pay for the right name. And so she actually gave me the money to go to the courthouse and get it changed, which I thought was very therapeutic in a way, very full circle. And to think that when I signed the the allowance today, if I had to sign that in my old name, the pain that would put me through, I don't have to do that. I get to do the name that I feel was what I should have been born with. And in years to come, it will be, amazing. I see online these kids who are like 5, 6 that are just, and I knew at that age, and um, I have a friend who she's got this little girl, and she's the sweetest little girl. And I know without a shadow of a doubt she's a little girl. And she gets to go on hormone blockers before she hits puberty so that she can become this flourishing, amazing, strong woman. And she doesn't have to worry about any of puberty changing that. She doesn't have to live that horror movie that I felt. And to me, that's such an amazing gift. And I can't even fathom what years to come will even be. If we'll be able to someday be able to find science that, there's a gene in me that's different. I don't know, but that you'll get to prep somebody to have a fully beautiful life. Who knows? Honestly, science is incredible. But yeah, those things are amazing to me. And surgeries, top surgery, bottom surgeries, they're just moving so much faster than I think anybody ever thought. And doctors are becoming much more empathetic to it, and I have seen such amazing replies, even on, Instagram. A doctor or a personal post about their surgery, and the doctor will reply, "I'm so glad you're happy with the results. It was such a pleasure working with you." And um, that connection, that relationship is such an amazing, intimate thing that um, we're really lucky. And I know that things haven't, we have a long way to go, and the political climate can be difficult, but I have hope. I have so much hope. I have seen so many amazing things come from the community, from cisgender people, from allies. I have been a very lucky man. Within the first year, everybody was calling me by the name I wanted, the pronouns I wanted. Um, I just have been very blessed. And I think a huge part of that is the people I choose, but also it goes back to what I said of that anchor, having that anchor in yourself, knowing that yourself, who you are, and having that compassion when people do mess up. And I think that if we can hold on to that we give people the benefit of the doubt and kind of just bring them in, and help educate them, we're already becoming unstoppable. So I just can't wait to see all of the amazing things that are going to come in the next few years, whether it's through, visibility, through social media. I really hope that I get to grow my platform and help educate people as much as possible. The moment you see something in somebody else's life, when you see the story, not just the facts. People often preach facts about transgender people or the horrible way that trans women of color are treated. But when I can put a name and a face, they become so much more empathetic. The facts are there, and the facts are horrible. But when you can put a face and a name, they want to donate to those people. They want to help those people. And I think that's what's important is I tell people often, I'm vocal on my social media. I'm vocal, but I will never, ever force someone else who's trans to be vocal as well. That's my right. That's my ability. That's my gift. But what we often expect them to share their story. And I think that what's important is the people who are willing to share their story, shout it from the rooftops, so that the people who can't share their stories get to stay silent. Because silence is just as important, because it's their mental health. It's keeping them safe. It's keeping them through anxiety. Having that ability to stay silent is really important, so that the people who can talk, who have gone through the therapy and the life experiences to use that voice, use it if you can, because it's important. It's important to share that visibility. So yeah, so hopefully I'll get to sit down with hundreds and thousands of kids and help them, and teenagers and adults. What I will always say, and what has been said 1,000 times before me, is it gets better. If somebody had told 11-year-old me, not only are you going to get to wear suits at your job all the time and rock them, but you're also going to get to be a dad. Oh, gosh. Oh, my gosh. I don't know what I would have done. I can't even imagine, I mean, a dad, a husband, I'm a brother, I'm a son, I'm a grandson, all of those things. If somebody had said to me, give it 15 years, give it just a little bit of time. Put the knife down, don't look for a reason to kill yourself. Just, I promise you it gets better. If somebody had been able to do that, oh my gosh, I would have been so excited. I just thought I was gonna have to be miserable my whole life. So if I could sit down and tell somebody that it gets better and you're gonna have to put in some work, and I think I think we need an asterisk in the LGBTQ community of it gets better with an asterisk of you're still gonna have to work hard. It doesn't just get better because everybody around you changes. It gets better because you educate yourself, because you get to know yourself, because you meditate on who you are, and you're so confident in who you are that you don't really worry so much about how other people think of you. Yeah, society changed and a lot of things changed around me, but really, what's the number one thing that changed? Me. I'm what changed, and not because I have facial hair or a deeper voice or my jawline is way better. All of those things changed, yeah, but what really changed is I knew without a shadow of a doubt where my manhood stood. And it wasn't just all of these things. It was having that ability to sit down and say, what do I need for my mental health? What do I need to sit and really meditate on for day in, day out struggles? And I would love to be able to tell somebody who's younger, start today, start journaling today, start meditating today, have a focus of what you want your future to look like. It's endless. Whatever you want, it can become it. But you have to focus on that so that when people do want to bully you, which they probably will, you're okay with that. You're okay with saying, you know what is it Michelle Obama says, when they go low, we go high. Well, you have that ability because you know who you are. You know your gender, no matter what society says. I remember this lady, I was in this aisle at the store, and she was talking about somebody who was transitioning, a celebrity, and how awful they were. And I just lost my cool. And I was like, if you didn't know me, you thought I was a man. She's like, you are a man. And I was like, well, let me tell you. And I told her, and she's like, well, then I don't see you as a man anymore. And I was like, guess what? I'm just as much as a man I am now as I was 5 minutes ago. Your opinion means literally nothing to me. And the doubt in her beliefs, you could see it in her eyes. She started to question everything because she realized she was saying something. She was still trying to be ignorant, but you could see in her eyes, I had just planted that seed of, I don't affect him. I can't change him. He's still going to be him. And that to me was pivotal to my life because it made me realize I get to decide. Yes, the hormones are amazing. The surgery, crucial. It was very important. But all of those things are great. Having that self-confidence is what gets me through day in and day out. So full circle, yeah, long-winded. If I could tell a little kid or a youth that was going through this, it would be to get to know yourself. Have faith in yourself. That's what I would tell them.